Hello, welcome to Being Who You Are, the podcast. I'm your host, Naomi Simpson, and I am delighted to welcome my wonderful guest, Kimberly McGrath of Expressions of the Universe. And I have known Kimberly for several years. She is a wonderful and gifted astrologer, tarot reader, intuitive healer, shaman, a delightful artist, a wonderful writer, and an amazing content creator at expressionsoftheuniverse.com. So thank you, Kim, for agreeing to chat with me today.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much for having me.
Yay, my pleasure. And Kim has just had her daughter was married on the weekend. So she's just coming down from the excitement and wonderful celebration there. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Lots of mixed emotions when we're sending our children off onto the next part of their journey, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So what Kim and I were chatting just before we started the recording, and so we were talking. I actually posted a part of a Robert Frost poem yesterday, the one about the road less traveled, and that this is the path I chose, and it's made all the difference. And that poem really speaks to me about the idea of living true to oneself and living in integrity and authentically. So what does it mean to you, Kim, to live true to yourself, to travel that road less traveled?
Well, when I saw your post, it just gave me chills head to toe. I've always loved that poem
Mhm.
from Robert Frost because I feel as though that is how I've lived my life.
Mhm.
I've gone against the grain of what everybody told me I should be doing and how I should be living my life. And I've done what I've wanted to do for the
Mhm.
most part. Of
Mhm.
course, we do have to fit into some little boxes, but I've lived my life authentically doing exactly what I want. I don't settle for anything that does not bring me joy
Nice.
and happiness and ease. Of course, I think we all do things that we don't want to because we have to, as far as, earning a living and
Mhm.
keeping a roof over our families' heads. But
Mhm.
I've really tried to make the best of it and only do what makes me happy and what brings me joy. Because
That,
when I'm filled with that, then that's what's exuding from me. And I'm
absolutely.
passing that on to other people.
Mhm. Definitely. And speaking as somebody who's known you for a few years, you can really feel like your love and enthusiasm for what you do. And so it like that, it, it is very clear in terms of like in any of my interactions with you and in any of the content that you share, you can really feel your passion and love for what you're doing, which I think is so important. Because when you can feel somebody's just sort of going through the motions and their heart's not really in it, that's a totally different experience, right? So
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. And I'm sure you've noticed when I do feel that way,
mhm.
I kind of take a little break and I back
Yes.
away from it because I want to always be giving
Hmm.
authentically. And if I find that I'm forcing myself to feel a certain way or to provide, like to produce something for the sake of producing it,
Hmm.
excuse me, we were talking a lot before this.
I know.
Um, I can't do that. I can't force that passion. So I will take a little break, a little respite so that I can reignite my passion again. And then I come back and I'm refreshed and happy.
And that, I think that's so important, like to recognize that we can't always be on this upward trajectory and just always feeling like totally on and enthusiastic about whatever it is. And so I think that to me is self-care, to recognize
Hmm.
this, I need to step back, or I need to rest, or recalibrate. And that's learning how to live in sync with like the natural flow of life and just the ebbs and flows that we feel energetically. So that in itself is a very powerful practice of being true to yourself, to say like, okay, I need to step back, or, you know, for you, having just celebrated your daughter's wedding, that's, you know, what is a really special occasion that you want to devote all of your energy to. So you, like, I know you know, sort of took a step back from your other activities to be fully present for that celebration.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And
And
I,
that's, yeah, so
oh,
important.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would have a tendency to spread myself out too thin sometimes
Mm-hmm.
so that I can accommodate everybody in
Mm-hmm.
every situation. But I really wanted to be present for this once in a lifetime occasion, and everything else got put on the back burner. And I
Yes.
don't feel guilty. And, you know, I actually needed this time also for myself. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to enjoy it and remember it and not just
Yes.
rush through this.
Yeah. Well, and it's a, as much as it's a rite of passage for your daughter, it's also a rite of passage for you. Your role as, I mean, of course, you're always going to be her mother, but the relationship between the two of you is also shifting. So you have to honor that transition and really give it the real significance that it deserves, because it's huge. It's a huge deal. It's not just a, okay, yeah, big party, see ya. You know, it's a
No,
rite of passage.
that's
Absolutely.
true.
So you make it sound like it's really easy to just, I know myself and I know what I want and I'm going to set healthy boundaries and be true to me. So can you tell me, was this something that you were able to do from a really young age, or at what stage? Because I find personally like it's something that it's taken me many decades to learn how to really always be in integrity. When did, sort of, what age did you start to feel that you were able to really step into who you were and express that authentically?
I I feel as though I have always been a rebel,
Hmm.
and I've always done what I've wanted to do
Okay.
since I was a very young child. I used to get a lot of spankings because of that,
Right.
but I still did it anyway.
Hmm.
Um, and I think over the years, my family just realized, oh, this is who she is, and she's not going to get herself into trouble. And then I was given a lot of freedom because they
Okay.
trusted me. They knew who I was.
Hmm.
Um, Now, when it comes to boundaries, I'm working on that still.
Hmm.
You know, that's a tough subject,
Yeah.
but I think I'm very spontaneous. And if
Hmm.
there's something that ignites me, whether it's to hop on a plane and, you know, go travel halfway across the world, I go and I do it. Like
Hmm.
my, my, uh, what am I looking for? My passion, my enthusiasm to constantly be learning
Hmm.
or exploring something new has always taken me somewhere fabulous.
Nice.
And I just, you know, I kind of go with that. Now, you know, I don't live this exciting life. I love to really be hunkered down in my home. I
Hmm.
love that. That's where I create the boundaries. And that's taken many years
Hmm.
to establish with my closest friends and even my family. They know what my boundaries are, but
Hmm.
sometimes I do give too much of myself.
Hmm.
So I'm still learning. I'm still learning about myself. I don't think we ever stop learning. And, you know, like I try something out. Oh, you know what? That didn't work. Got to
Yeah.
tweak it a little bit. I don't like to hurt people's feelings. And I can sometimes be a little over accommodating.
Hmm.
But I'm learning.
That, and I think that's a really difficult lesson, particularly for women. Like, we are socialized, and we have traditionally been socialized to, you know, be people pleasers and to accommodate and, you know, to be nice. And so it can be difficult sometimes. I personally have found it at times difficult to set boundaries in a nice way. So sometimes when I set boundaries, I'm a little too strong with them. So it's
Me
learning that,
too.
yeah, that nice balance. Like, okay, you can set boundaries without having to put up Fort Knox, you know? So yeah, I definitely think boundaries are really an interesting thing. And I find that it's an issue that I tend to explore you know, with clients a lot in terms of how to find that balance. And that's part of what this question is how can I live true to myself, but also true to my relationships, whether that be a romantic partnership or our friendships or our family, because, you know, we have history with all of those different people, and so it gets messy and complicated.
Yes, it does. And like you said, every person in our lives, you know, whether they're family or a friend or a client, it's
Mhm.
a different relationship.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different boundary
Mhm.
set up with them as well. So,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people have a hard time establishing and maintaining boundaries.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That to me, it's something like when you said, you know, that you're still learning. And I think, yeah, we're all still learning. And certainly for me, I aspire to continue to learn my whole life. But boundaries are something, and actually not just boundaries, but how to be in healthy relationships with other human beings, period, is something that we are not taught. We, you know, and if historically, like if our own families of origin didn't know these skills, how could they pass them on to us? So we're all sort of out there, just the blind leading the blind, hoping for
Right.
the best outcome. So it's, yeah, it can be a bit messy, and so yeah, I think having some empathy and compassion for ourselves as we learn these new skills, I think that's very, very important. Um,
I agree.
so going back, I just want to touch back, like when you talk about your childhood. So in terms of like, obviously, I know you have a day job, which is more of a kind of traditional job, and your passion is all of the things that I listed about you in the introduction. And you have so many passions, which is so wonderful and inspiring. So was your family just totally on board with that once they sort of were like, ah, Kim's different, she's marching to the beat of her own drummer, and then they were just 100% like, go for it, do your astrology, do your tarot, do like, tell me a little bit more about that experience.
Well, I grew up in a very untraditional, yet traditional type of family. We look traditional on the outside, but
Really?
on the inside, we were all gifted
Okay.
in psychically, I should
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Also, too, all pretty much, I'm thinking just about everyone in my family has some sort of artistic ability, whether
Nice.
it's playing music
Hmm.
or drawing and painting. My mother was a professional ballerina,
Oh, wow.
so she was a dancer, but she was also a musician and a
Hmm.
really wonderful artist. Um, so I grew up in this very, it looked traditional,
Hmm.
you know, that 50s perfect model home, but I was raised by my mother's parents with
Hmm.
my mother, and we looked traditional on the outside, but on the inside, it was all about embracing these wonderful things about ourselves. You know, my grandfather, he taught me so much about nature
Hmm.
and the stars and the earth and the planet and all the creatures
Hmm.
that were on it. And my grandmother was a pediatrician,
Hmm.
and but she loved her gardening and she loved fishing. We were always part of the outdoors.
Yeah, the
And that
natural
was so
world, and
the
yeah.
natural world. And you know, my grandfather, he taught me about animal totems and all of the constellations
Hmm.
in the
Nice.
sky. So um they nurtured that part of me. And then when I was 10, my mother uh gave me my first tarot deck.
Nice.
But I stole her one of her astrology books
Okay.
by Linda Goodman.
Hmm.
back in 1973.
I love it.
And, my mom had we were avid readers, and I took her Linda Goodman book, Love Signs. So I was about 7 years old, 7 or 8
That's
years old,
hilarious.
because I was noticing personality dynamics in people. And I wanted to know why people were the way they were.
Right.
And, I'm flipping through this Linda Goodman. It's like a big encyclopedia. And she's explaining, how different signs were. And I knew what people's birthdays were. I was always obsessed with when is your birthday, knowing when someone's birthday is. And
Right.
I have remembered some of my childhood friends' birthdays. But just reading about the dynamics of what the sun signs were, and then how they interacted with different signs, that opened up a whole entire world to me.
Yeah.
And that got me into astrology, because it helped me understand at a very young age why people were the way they were.
Yeah.
And instead of, being cross with them or disliking people, I would just like, oh, okay, this is why you are this way, and I can accept you for that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then my mother, she, when I was 10, so this would be 1975, got me my first tarot deck and a mentor.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yes,
That's very
because
progressive.
yes. Now also you have to understand, leading up to this, Sunday nights were made for seances in our family. Like, the aunts and the uncles, everybody, after big Sunday dinner, and the sun went down, the candles got lit in the dining room, and, we're all around doing seances. So this was a normal part of my life.
Right.
But she did get me a mentor because she wanted me to learn. She wanted me to be able to learn on my own, and not, be forced into whatever they were doing. Now, this isn't something we talked about in our family either, like on the outside.
It was the family secret.
It was, and and it was, you don't tell people about this.
Right. Yeah.
And so coming out of the closet, that was difficult for me, but it's always been embraced.
And so when did you like come out of the closet, so to speak?
I would say maybe in my 20s. Some of my oldest friends didn't even find out until maybe 10 or 20 years ago, and they were shocked. They knew something was weird about me, even when I was a teenager, just with how intuitive I was, and I knew certain things would happen. But yeah, and it still really took me a long time to fully come out. Like, I would only tell a few people, like, especially if I had a vision of something.
Okay.
And I knew something was going to happen to somebody, excuse me, I would let them know.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want you to be careful because of, well, how do you know that? Or, whatever. It was, I slowly emerged from that because I wanted to be accepted. And so many of my friends are very religious.
Right.
So, that was difficult.
Yeah, I'll bet. I can.
Yeah,
So they
so
kind
there's
of were
a
like,
whole other dynamic with that, and still even to this day. But now I'm extremely accepted.
right.
I would say I fully came out probably 2010,
Okay, cool.
where I just don't even, I don't care what you think. This is who I am.
Yeah.
You either accept me or you don't. And I respect people
Yeah.
that are extremely religious and think that what I do or what I am is,
You accept their difference of opinion, right? Like that's
right. I do.
it's live and let live. So
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. So yeah.
So tell me, when you were younger and you were, sort of more in the closet, so to speak, and so maybe not as able to live true to yourself or whatever. What was that like when you were sort of suppressing who you really were?
Um, I don't I don't know that it really bothered me so much because I was so weird as a kid
Okay.
that I would say things, and most people, they just thought that I was really weird, so they accepted that.
Hmm.
Um, but I still think I can remember this one time, I would walk home from school and I had this vision, and it lasted for, probably a couple of weeks, that
Hmm.
I would be walking home from school and I would see an ambulance at my house. So
Yeah.
every day I was expecting that this ambulance would be at the house. We had at one time, I think 5 or 6 generations living in my house
Oh, wow.
at one time. So we had all
Lot.
different ages.
Yeah.
And then the one day, I came home and there it was. And it was like, of course, it was heartbreaking. I was 9, maybe nine
Oh,
years
wow.
old, but I couldn't tell people
Yeah.
that I was having that experience. So I think there was a lot of anxiety there,
Right.
but when I got home, I could express that in the house.
Yeah. So it's kind
Um,
of isolating then outside of that,
it
of your,
was,
yeah.
it was. And I think it was mostly because I knew that I couldn't share this with other people. It wasn't so much, oh, you can't tell people. Like my family wasn't like that. I think it was just something that was known, like, yeah, you may not want to. It really wasn't like that. I just kind of knew that people wouldn't accept me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh,
Absolutely.
by the way, I see ghosts.
Yeah.
People, now my friends, when I was little, I did tell my friends that I could see ghosts, and they
Right.
loved that.
Okay, that's
Yeah, they
well,
did love that.
children are usually way more open and accepting of everything. So
Right.
that, for them it's like, oh yeah. And I often, I like you hear of more kids who have those kinds of experiences because they're open to it and
Right.
they don't have this mindset of like, nope, it's got to be this way.
And I
Um,
encourage people when their children start saying
yeah.
that, I encourage them to embrace it and allow
Yes.
them
Yeah.
to tell you the stories, or tell you what they're seeing, or
Yeah.
who they're having a conversation with. Like, don't shut that out,
Exactly.
because that's when people lose it. I think we all have this gift. It just
Yes.
depends on whether it's embraced or not.
Yes, absolutely. And same, I mean, that's the same thing with like you're trusting your intuition. I'm always saying to my daughter, like, trust your intuition. Like when you get a feeling in your body, trust it. And for me, there have been many times where I didn't trust, it's like, oh, no, no, you don't. But now I do. But it took me a long time to get back to that point of, and that was partly because doing my yoga practice and really tuning into the body and stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, the more you use it, the better. It's like anything, the stronger that gets. So you're able to, use it more effectively and it can really help you and guide you in life. So yeah, I agree. I would never try to shut that down. It's like, no, get curious. Go, don't, you don't have to
Right.
feel fearful of it. So
And I have to tell you, there are still some times where I second guess myself and then I kick myself for it. I'm like, I
yeah.
knew I shouldn't have done that, and I did it anyway.
Been there, done
So
that. I've got
yes. So that's another thing that I'm working on right now, is to stop second guessing, like go
yes.
with that first
Mhm.
intuitive hit, that first feeling in my gut, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Saves a lot of over analysis as well.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, I have the same experience. And so then when I get that confirmation, I think, okay, and now I've just strengthened that ability to reinforce that, yeah, my instincts were bang on. And I knew I had a sense about this. And I think it boils down to trusting yourself. And again, we live in a society that really undermines that. And so it's that saying no, like I can trust myself, like I do know what's best for me. So but it's definitely something we have to keep working on, at
I
least I
know.
do. So
No, I think we all do.
So when you came out of the closet, did you notice that it had sort of a ripple effect in your life? Like, do you feel like you inspired other people to sort of step more fully into who they were?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because people would then confide in me. Well, I think people always confided in me,
Hmm.
and I would give them talks or speeches of encouragement.
Hmm.
And I'm so non-judgmental, and I really like to help people grow
Hmm.
and be who they can, the best person that they can be. But it did start a ripple effect, because now all of a sudden, a lot of people were very curious.
Nice.
And, of course, there were people that left me
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
and, you know, not happy with that. They
Right.
were not happy with the fact. Um, and, there was a long time where I was almost embarrassed to say, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
but it's interesting, because coming out and being authentic,
Mhm.
I started to find my real people.
Yes, absolutely. I think, and that's such a good point because, yeah, definitely some relationships will shift and you may lose some, and
Right.
that's painful and that's normal to, feel sad. But then I feel like it brings you closer to who you're really meant to be and who you really resonate with, right?
Yes. I will say that, in the beginning, or, like, it doesn't happen so much anymore, because I must have like a little Fort Knox around me, but people were attracted to me or wanted to be friends with me
Hmm.
because they wanted to take advantage of that
Ah, yes.
ability.
Hmm.
But all that was so long ago,
Yeah.
and I just wanted people to accept me.
Hmm.
And it was fun also in the beginning, but then, I had to set up, that's where the boundary structures began,
Hmm.
even with some of my oldest friendships.
Right.
Like, I am not here to predict your life.
Yeah.
And, like, if I was a plumber and you had a broken pipe, you would be scheduling an appointment with
Yeah.
me. And now, of course, like, if I had information about somebody that I'm close with, I give it to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but I don't like people asking me, like, oh, can you pull a card for me? Can you tell me what's transiting my sixth house?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
don't do that. If I
Yeah.
offer it to you, that's great.
Yes. Yeah.
But, don't call me up. And it depends, I suppose. Some people I have no problem.
Yeah,
Do
but it's
you know what I mean? But
yeah,
like, my
absolutely.
real tribe, and I've come to this place where my circle is very small,
Hmm.
but I know that every single person that is in that circle is true blue.
Yeah. They have your back, right?
Oh,
That's yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the gift of when we can really step into who we are and really own the gifts that we came to shine uniquely. You do tend to find the people who are really meant for you, right? And that's so powerful. Um, Now, in the past year, with the whole COVID situation, have you found that it's made it easier or more difficult for you to remain sort of living in integrity?
Oh, I think it's more so.
Okay.
This because this is actually my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And my neighbor and I, at our full moon fire pit last night, we were talking about this, how this pandemic has been such a blessing for both of us, that
Yeah.
they're my friends are workaholics as well.
Right.
I
Mhm.
work a lot, because
Yeah.
I just love doing everything. But it was so nice, because I am home and I'm in the
Mhm.
place where I feel the safest
Yeah.
and the most comforted. And it gave me the excuse to slow down, even
Hmm.
though I was 3 times busier last year than I've ever been.
Right.
Um, but it was at my own pace.
Nice.
And I wasn't being pulled in so many directions. It was
Mhm.
just a whole new dynamic that I don't want it to end. Like this is what I want.
So that, and
Like,
that to me is the invitation is, I agree. I mean, I'm not diminishing that COVID has been,
oh, it's been
there's,
horrendous for
yeah.
so many people, but
And it's also given us this unbelievably special and unique opportunity to get this bird's eye view on life and say what's important and what doesn't matter. And
yes.
and that to me, so then and then the invitation becomes, okay, here's what I have realized is really important to me. And how do I, as we move beyond this situation, how do I make sure I don't lose sight of that? That's, so when you say like, I don't want it to end, it's like, okay, so hopefully it's going to end, but how do you maintain this, like the feelings and the lifestyle that you've created in this kind of safe sanctuary for you this past year?
Yeah. Well, when I say I don't want it to end, I don't, I mean, obviously I want the pandemic to end.
Yes, of
I want us
course.
to be able, I want to be able to come up and see you and
Yeah.
cross that border, and travel again.
Yeah.
But I do not want to get back into that old rat race
Hmm.
that we had before, the pressure to perform, the pressure to produce.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to,
Mhm.
still give everything my all,
Yeah.
but I don't want my values have like really emerged.
Okay.
Like the things that I've been valuing my whole life and wanting,
Mhm.
I've actually been able to, you know, move into that space. And
Nice.
that's what I want to maintain. Um, and I don't think that's going to change. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to go back and work in an office.
No. Yeah.
I like this and I think I'm more productive too,
Yeah.
you
And I,
know?
I think a lot of people have had that experience, whether it be, their careers, their relationships, their, I mean, partnerships, like their romantic partnerships or their
Hmm.
relationships with family and friends. Like, I think everything has come up for evaluation this year. Their relationship with their own physical health, their connection spiritually, like everything to me has come under the microscope to say, is this working? Is this serving me? Or do I need to let this go? And
Right.
so it's, yeah, I think it's such an incredible opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see how we move beyond these times. So that's for sure.
Yes, it will.
Um, so I'm trying to kind of keep all my interviews to around, 30 to 40 minutes. So we're kind of
Okay.
nearing that time. And so I would ask, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me? You've been very forthcoming and sharing, which I greatly appreciate.
I do. I do have some questions. So, you know, I'm I'm curious to see where you see yourself going. I mean, it's such a pleasure to see how you've grown over the couple of years that I
Thank
have
you.
known you,
Hmm.
um, and just really step into your own authenticity and integrity. And you've been blossoming.
Thank you.
Podcast is wonderful. You, your readings, your as astrology readings are so inspirational to me, different than my own, but like I've told you, your last reading even pulled me out of like a little depression
Hmm.
that I was in. Where do you see yourself going next?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for all your nice, kind words. So, I feel part of what so the podcast for me is really a creative endeavor. It's something I wanted to like express myself creatively. And I just love the podcast like arena. And I thought, I think I'd like to try this. And I was interviewed on a podcast back in the fall, and that really inspired me. And I got so much good feedback. I thought, I'm going to give this a try. And I love having conversations like this. And I thought I want to do this more often. And so I'm really just trying to stay open. And I want to do this in a way that feels creative and enjoyable, and that it's also like of service and benefit to others. And when it stops being fun, then I probably will stop doing it. But it's funny because I've had different people say like, well, what are you trying to do with this? And I said, it's a creative outlet for me.
Right.
And in terms of, like my astrology and coaching, I really am enjoying doing that and just looking to sort of keep growing and expanding and learning, and also surrendering and going with the flow. That's something I really struggle with personally, is to just allow things to happen. And so that's part of, it's an exercise in trust to just let things happen the way they're meant to. And it's funny because I'm an entrepreneur. I've grown a business before. And so when I first started doing this, like readings and coaching professionally, not just for family and friends, I sort of had different goals in mind. It was like, oh, I've got to do this many readings each week, and or blah, 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 blah. And then last fall, I thought, well, hang on a minute. Like, that's not why you're doing this. You're doing this because you really want to connect with people. You want to be of service. You want to help people discover who they are and uncover, like the gem inside, and help them peel away the layers so that they can really step into who they are. And so I have to trust that those who need me will find me, and not push so hard. Like, because it's not the same as the last business that I created, which again, I also did to, be in service to others. But, I don't need to always have these, like, I'm not a corporation. I don't have shareholders I need to be accountable to and be
Right.
like, and I'm going to make this much money, and by this date, I want to take it. I want to surrender a little bit more and trust. And also I want it to be something that I always enjoy, and not feel that it's becoming like a 9 to 5 grind. I want it to be something that's the
Right.
tricky thing, because sometimes I've had that happen before, in my other business, where at times it became like I was a slave to the business. And then it's like, oh, that's not why I'm doing this. And that's part of being an entrepreneur. Most people who work as entrepreneurs want a little bit more freedom, and there are trade-offs for that. So
And that's why I take breaks, because things
mhm.
stop becoming fun, and you have to get beyond the fear that if you take a break, people will still be there. People will still want you, because
Mhm.
in the world of social media and the platforms where we are on,
Yeah.
you take a week off, or maybe even 2 weeks or more, are the people still going to be there? And you just have to trust
Yes.
that who is meant to be there will still be there, or new people will find you, and relax into that. Otherwise, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
We're here to have fun.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, we're
Yeah.
not here to be a slave to the wage.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. If I wanted that, I would be. I've done that whole work in the corporate world,
Oh
and
my gosh, yes.
the big commute, and the nonstop grind. And if that floats your boat, then great.
Exactly.
But that's certainly not my jam anymore. So I learned a lot in that environment, and I'm grateful for the experience. And I met lots of wonderful people, some of whom I still really connected to, which is great. But I couldn't go back there now.
Right.
It's
Well, I
just, yeah.
love knowing you, and I just love watching you grow over these last couple of
Thank
years.
you.
And thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you for joining me for this conversation. And so, before we say our final goodbyes, if people want to connect with you, where is the best place for them to find you?
Well, my website is expressionsoftheuniverse.com,
Mhm.
and I can also be found on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube. I have hundreds of videos on YouTube. I am taking a little bit of a break right now, but
Mhm.
I do astrology readings and tarot readings for all signs.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different content on there. And if you're a coffee lover, you'll see that on my Facebook.
And you And you also, your beautiful artwork is available on
Oh,
Redbubble,
on
right?
Redbubble, yes.
Yeah.
So Kimberly McGrath, and it is Expressions of the Universe by Kimberly McGrath.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I have a beautiful, beautiful shirt that Kimberly did. It's gorgeous. I love it, and I
Oh,
get
thank
so many
you.
compliments
I
on it.
can't
So
wait. I'm starting to feel inspired again to create.
nice.
You know, we go through those waves,
Yes, absolutely. You
and I
need to
can't
rest.
force it.
Yeah, you can't just be produce, produce, produce. You have to
Well, that's
step
what was
back and rest.
happening with the art.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this isn't fun anymore.
So that's being true to yourself. You
Right.
recognize that, step back. Yay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this conversation. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.